Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be here, in particular to be sharing the stage on the opening plenary with Chris and with Debbie and with Stephen. I was saying to Naomi, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, before the session that I first met Naomi when I was a graduate student, which doesn't speak to our age, but more to, frankly, Naomi's profound and deep commitment to public policy, because she has very much devoted her career to good public policy, and it's a pleasure to be on the stage with Naomi today. I also want to offer my thanks to Jean and to Vicky and to all the organizers of this conference. It's amazing how far this conference has come since 2013, both with respect to its depth and its scope. And I couldn't think, as I said to them earlier, of a more critical time to bring all of us together to have what is an important gathering with a diverse set of voices. And on behalf of the Deputy, Katrina Tapley, and the department as a whole, we are very, very proud to support this gathering. What Naomi didn't share with you is that I was appointed into this job on August the 21st, so in some ways I'm a newbie too. I've been in the department for about 9 years, so I have a number of different roles in the department, mostly at the front end of the immigration program, thinking a lot about selection. I was responsible for immigration levels, and I most recently was the Government of Canada lead on the policy side for Canada's refugee, resettlement, and asylum programs. It's a real pleasure and honor for me now to assume the helm of the back end of the program, the settlement and integration sector, for two reasons. One, I think it's a critical time for us to think about settlement, given the numbers, as Naomi said, of folks that we're bringing in. But also just to share a personal anecdote with you, before joining government, I spent about 10 years in the nonprofit world in the disability movement. I was the chair of ARCH, which is here in Toronto, which is a legal aid, part of Legal Aid Ontario. And I feel very privileged now to work at a senior level inside the Government of Canada, working in partnership with civil society partners to do good work to ensure that newcomers are fully integrated. Today we've been asked to consider ways to ensure the continued and renewed support for Canada's immigration system. Et plus précisément, on nous a demandé de faire part de notre vision pour les années à venir lorsqu'il s'agit d'établir les objectifs de notre programme, de répondre aux besoins des clients et de donner suite à nouveaux défis. It's an interesting time right now for me as a senior public servant to be in front of you, because we've had the election, but we don't yet have a new government in place with a new cabinet, which will be happening on November the 20th. So it's challenging for me to speak about government priorities because they've not yet been set. But I think we know enough from the campaign and from the government's posture overall that we can have, and I will share with you some thoughts. I think the other important consideration is that we're in a minority parliament, which is unique and different for not just parliamentarians, but for public servants, and frankly for all of us. And it presents both opportunities and challenges. I want to share with you first just the vision for the settlement program from at least the department's perspective, a bit the what and the how and the why with respect to moving forward. Deuxièmement, les affaires qu'on nous avait entrepris dernièrement pour améliorer nos programmes, both for providers and for clients. And then I'll finish off with just some challenges and opportunities. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's important just to say, and Naomi touched on this, that the Canadian immigration program is unique in the world. And it's unique from my perspective for two fundamental reasons, in that we have two pillars that are its foundation. At the front end, we think a lot about who and why and how many newcomers come to this country. And there is an active debate about that, which is an important debate. But what's critical is that we plan for how many are going to come in the arrivals. The other piece, as I mentioned, is the settlement and integration program at the back end. So we spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort investing in newcomers to ensure their overall success. And it's fair to say that the program is performing quite well. We have overall positive outcomes, and I know Umit, who's in the room, I think, from the department, will be speaking tomorrow about outcomes. There's much more, though, we can do, and we need to do to ensure continued and sustained positive outcomes. Canada's settlement program is globally recognized. When I travel to Geneva, to the UN Refugee Agency, or to Paris, to the OECD, People want to understand Canada and how it is that our program functions and why it functions so well. And third, public support is holding steady if you look at it over time. But as Jean and Vicky have, I think, appropriately calibrated this conference, it's important that we think carefully about public support and sustained public support. And as Naomi notes, given that sustained volumes, I think, are our future, and the global shifting landscape, it's critical that we pay close attention to public support and think carefully about that. A little bit about the program. The program is evolving. I don't think I need to say that, but I'm going to say it out loud. Three things to highlight here. We've moved from an annual levels plan to a multi-year levels plan. So we know that there will be year-over-year growth for the next 3 years. It also means that we appropriate or fund a settlement program based on permanent resident volumes. So we know that there is more money coming into the settlement program year over year. Just to give you one factoid, from 2016-17 to this year, there's been a 22% increase in the funding that's available for the settlement program. This, of course, means that we have the opportunity to plan better because we know the funds that are available. In addition, through the call for proposals that we are very keen to start renegotiating once we're out of the caretaker period, we've moved to a series of customized services and supports based on the collaboration that we did with the settlement sector. So we're looking very carefully at how to engage employers, entrepreneurship, a focus on Francophone minority communities, as well as mental health and well-being, all of which were highlighted by the recent Standing Committee report on immigration. And finally, we're very proud in the department to move to 5-year agreements. It's very critical for us to provide stability to the sector in the context of the funding envelope, recognizing that that's a long period of time, and there will need to be some built-in flexibility year over year. And as I said, concluding those agreements is a priority for me and for the department. In addition to the program adaptations that have advanced through the call for proposals, we are testing new and innovative approaches. So just to highlight a few for you, the Service Delivery Improvement Fund is critical for us, and I hope for all of you, because it really is about having a higher risk threshold to try new things, focused on some particular areas like language acquisition, employment, pay for performance, to really test those ideas. And as Naomi said, and I agree with her, innovation is key here, and the department is committed on an ongoing basis to innovate with all of you, to test new ideas, and if they work, then let's figure out how we can scale those ideas up. Deuxièmement, le programme pilote d'immigration au Canada Atlantique et le programme pilote d'immigration dans les communautés rurales et du Nord are critical new innovations for the immigration program. We are really focused in these on designing to support regional economic development. But I think what's critical for the settlement sector is that as we calibrate the selection at the front end through these pilots, working with employers and working with communities on how we choose who comes, we are also tailoring settlement offerings against that selection model. As all of you know, the Liberal Party through the campaign committed to make permanent the Atlantic pilot. So we have to think carefully if that calibration, have we got it right in the context of that pilot? And if not, then let's have that conversation, because that thing is going to become permanent, I assume, given the commitment that the party has made, and we'll see what happens in the mandate letters when they come out. But there's an important conversation there that I think could also set platforms for the program as a whole. Third, the Visible Minority Newcomer Women's Pilot with a 3-pronged approach to top up existing agreements, to test and evaluate the effectiveness of employment-related services, and also then finally to establish new partnerships with non-traditional partners has been critical. Again, another commitment to expand this program, and the department is committed to work with all of you to do that. Finalement, l'initiative des communautés francophones accueillites, donc on a 14 communautés qui recevront des fonds pour créer des programmes et des activités visant à aider les nouveaux arrivants à s'agir dans les communautés francophones en situation minoritaire. This community-based approach enables communities to identify and to implement projects by and for Francophones across the country. And I think that this is critical and will be sustained as we go forward. And we're very proud in the context of the recent call with the number of Francophone community organizations that have been successful through that call. Let me conclude just with some challenges and opportunities. As Naomi said, and I agree, I'll deal with the first two together. I think the volume and complexity of who and how many we are bringing in is going to be sustained. We know the year-over-year plan, and I recognize I've spent a lot of time in the past month, as some of you will know, traveling across the country. I'll be home 6 days this month, meeting with my staff across the country, with leaders in the settlement community, and with my provincial counterparts. And there's a chorus about the volume and complexity of who's coming and the challenges that are associated with that. So it's critical that 4 minutes. It's critical that I'm actually pretty good. It's critical that we have that conversation, because it is going to, I believe it will be sustained. Certainly in the context of the multi-year plan it is, and we will see what commitments the government makes when it tables the next year of the multi-year plan once they form government on the 20th of November. I'm particularly focused on the refugee class here, as Naomi said, given my history in the department, but I'm equally focused, for instance, on economic principle applicants and tailoring of language supports, for instance, including how that can relate to foreign qualification recognition, which has been a persistent and long-standing problem. Third, outcomes. Many of you hear us talk about this. It's critical that we demonstrate outcomes, not just so we can tell the story of the positive outcomes, but so that we can demonstrate the investment that the government and all of you are making and the return that we're getting on that investment. I'm very pleased that we have some foundational pieces in place now, like the linkage between iCare, the important database that we have with our settlement community, and IMDb, which is the Statistics Canada longitudinal database that is really going to allow policy nerds like me to have meaningful conversations with people in the finance department about what X dollar gets in return for Y. I know none of us particularly like those conversations, but when I'm sitting in a parliamentary committee across from parliamentarians, I have to be able to defend that, and that important linkage is foundational. I'm also really pleased that my predecessor, David Manicom, worked very hard with provincial colleagues to do co-planning and co-mapping. Who's investing what, where, and why, and can we do it better? I am equally committed to advancing that work, and just last week had a very productive conversation with my counterpart in Ontario about exactly that, and I will be continuing those conversations. I'm planning on heading up to Yellowknife in December to a Northern Summit meeting, and we'll be moving forward with conversations with some of our Northern partners. Partnerships are critical. So we have many new players in the settlement space. We've got rural and small, francophone, private sector, and employers. It is critical that the sector work together in a collaborative way. I know those conversations are sometimes challenging because money is limited, but I want to be clear in saying the department is seized with this and ensuring that we get the best service for our clients with the most appropriate provider. So that's an important conversation that I encourage all of us to have. Next, on social cohesion, I think what's critical at the local level, given the space that we're in with respect to public support, is to ensure that we can strengthen our multi-sector collaboration that exists. And in my view, the local immigration partnerships and the réseau d'immigration francophone are foundational to the success of social cohesion, because it really is bringing together all of the critical players at the local level. And I would encourage all of us to think about how we can continue to build and strengthen those multi-sectoral partnerships, which I believe are foundational for our collective success. The program management reset is a very bureaucratic way of saying, what stupid things do we ask you to do that we can get rid of? Some of the stupid things we have to do, because I get asked to do them too, but others we don't. And so I want to continue to have an honest conversation with you about how we can make things more effective and efficient for all of you. And I recently had a chat with Debbie and Chris and made that very clear commitment, and we will be continuing that conversation in the coming weeks and months. I'll end by saying telling our story is key. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but we need to continue to lean in on telling the positive contribution that newcomers make to this country overall. And we are equally committed to supporting you in doing that through campaigns like How Immigration Matters. I believe there are new and innovative ways that we can continue that conversation, and I'm very open to hearing your suggestions on how we can do that. Let me stop by saying that I've got 3 priorities as I embark on this new gig that I've been given the privilege of doing. One is to have a continued focus on outcomes, as I highlighted already. I'm seized with quantitative, but I'm also seized with qualitative. So it's not just about the data and the numbers. I get that some programs lend themselves more to that, like LINK, where you really can look at how you get from CLB 1, 2, 3, 4 based on investments in time. Community connections is a very different kettle of fish and does not lend itself necessarily to quantitative metrics. Stories, case studies, the nuance and the color of what we do for our people is what's critical, but it's all about the outcome story. The second is relationships. It's why I have spent so much time traveling across the country, and I will continue to do so as I lead this organization. And finally, I want to solidify this sector. I have no intention I have no intention of changing things. I'm going to build on what we have built by having this 2 parts together, and I want to sustain and work with all of you in doing that. Thanks.